Launching his bid for the White House.
We are truly now, more than ever, the last great hope of Earth.
This is a guy who sees the world completely opposite of President Trump.
Hours from now, the U.S. Senate is going to consider blocking President Trump's national emergency declaration.
This is an easy decision. It's quite binary. You either are for border security or you're not.
All of those planes are grounded, effective immediately.
An excellent move by President Trump. He's backing aviation workers as well as the flying public.
ICE wanted this illegal immigrant detained 9 times, and now he's charged with murder.
This guy's a monster. If the laws weren't as messed up as they were, our victim would be alive.
Operation Varsity Blues exposing a nationwide college admissions scheme.
Stayed up late last night reading the indictment. I don't know if you can scream and throw up at the same time, but that's how I felt.
How they were talking about putting his face on the side of the studio wall. And I said, Brian, we can do better than that. We can actually put our faces on the front of the world.
And you did.
So Fox News.
And you did. Okay, you are a guy, a man of action. You're welcome.
How do you feel when you see that?
Well,
the song explains it all, right?
I came in at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's not like there are a lot of people looking at it. It was, but it's pretty cool. We're right
great
here at
because of you. You give us this opportunity to broadcast right here, wake everyone up around the world. Actually, what
life changes. We're on the front of the building.
Life does change. Yeah, God is good.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us on this Thursday.
All right. It is almost 2 minutes after the top of the hour, and let's get to this. The Fox News alert: Beto O'Rourke officially launching his bid for the White House.
This is a defining moment of truth for this country and for every single one of us. The challenges that we face right now, the interconnected crises in our economy, our democracy, and our climate have never been greater. And they will either consume us or they will afford us the greatest opportunity to unleash the genius of the United States of America. This is going to be a positive campaign that seeks to bring out the very best from every single one of us, that seeks to unite a very divided country.
All right. Well, the former Texas congressman served 3 terms in the Congress, throwing his hat in the ring after losing his congressional campaign to Senator Ted Cruz last year. As you can see right there, he is the 12th Democrat to officially declare a presidential run. Stand by, though, there could be double that number before it's all over.
Right. It seems like the media is firmly in his corner, and Barack Obama met with him in November. Maybe he'll have the Obama machine behind him. Beto became a political celebrity by turning to social media, especially in Texas. He mobilized a lot of young voters as well as minorities. He'll kick off his campaign March 30th in El Paso, Texas.
And he says in this article in Vanity Fair, he's on the front cover of Vanity Fair, and he talks about how he realized he had a gift, he and his wife, in their 3rd campaign tour, or their 3rd campaign event. They realized he doesn't need a script. He just goes up there on stage and he just says whatever comes to mind. He says he takes questions, and realized that he was able to do this and have a gift, and how he wants to unite Republicans. But when you look at how he votes, these are some of his positions. Anti-border wall, voted against ICE, voted against Kate's Law, voted against Trump tax cuts, supports single-payer health care, voted against restrictions on late-term abortions, voted against sanctioning Iran, and called law enforcement the new Jim Crow.
3 ago, Ainsley, you mentioned he voted against restrictions on late-term abortions, which means he's for late-term abortion, which, as we have seen in the last month and a half, when you look at the public surveys, a majority of Americans do not feel good about late-term abortion, particularly what we've heard, what was going on down in the Commonwealth of Virginia and here in New York.
If Biden gets in, does he have a shot still?
Biden is going to get in, but right now we had an expert on a couple of days ago, and he said a year from now, the 2 front runners would be Joe Biden and probably Kamala Harris.
And she actually flip-flopped on the death penalty yesterday, so she's got an interesting story going with the stuff she used to be like before and stuff she isn't. Beto O'Rourke's going to have an interesting thing because he's going to have 11 other Democrats asking him basically, what have you done? I don't know how you stay positive if 11 people are going after you and your record. That's going to be the big challenge. But it's a guy, he's got a lot of talent. They call him his candidacy, honesty and decency of Jimmy Carter, and the generational shift of JFK. So that's a lot to live up to.
It was a glowing article. It was definitely favorable for him.
Meanwhile, not favorable for the parents who had a lot of money to try to do whatever they could, including breaking the law to get their children into some elite colleges. colleges. Of course, it is, as you know now, Operation Varsity Blues. Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, two of the actresses right there, caught up in it. They have posted bond. They are out. John Kennedy, who is a senator from the great state of Louisiana, when he looked at this story, he didn't like it.
This is some of the most odious, vile, repugnant, reprehensible conduct I've ever seen. It made me want to scream, made me want to heave. Think about the hundreds of thousands of kids out there tonight who are studying hard. They're working their rear ends off because they believe in the American dream. And then you have these chuckleheads like these parents come along and do this because they're entitled. I mean, give me a break. This is why people are angry.
So,
and
Senator,
let me say it again.
Yeah,
I vote federal prison.
Wow, federal prison. Keep in mind, this is going to grow. You got 9 coaches, and you have 2 celebrities, and a lot of rich people. But I just think, just logic tells you, that's what the FBI got in 10 months when a whistleblower walked up to them arbitrarily and said, I got a bigger story for you. And man, were they right. And if you see what they wrote up with 300 pages, you know there's going to be a lot more coming as the indictment handed down yesterday. There's restrictions, too, on her freedom. She's not allowed to go. She can go shoot up in British Columbia, but for the most part, she's got to stay in the country, as does her husband. Lori Loughlin.
Mm-hmm. Well, according to this article in the Post, it's pretty fascinating. We talk about these families that were allegedly a part of this out in California, but there's one family that the Post is highlighting. They live on Fifth Avenue. If you've been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, they live right across the street from that. It's like the most expensive property probably in the country.
Right.
And the dad apparently is the founder of a food and beverage distributorship. Gregory and Marcia Abbott are their names. And according to this article, they allegedly bought their daughter's way into college, too.
Well, what's interesting about this article is one of their sons came out yesterday in front of their Park Avenue apartment.
Fifth Avenue, right?
Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
No, Park Avenue, sorry. That is Malcolm Abbott. He is the son, and according to the New York Post, he was smoking on a blunt. He says this of all of this that is going around his parents. They are blowing this whole thing out of proportion, said Malcolm Abbott outside the house that overlooks the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I believe everyone has a right to go to college, man. He also says his parents got roped into this scheme by somebody who cheated them.
Well,
oh, okay, that's fine. So that's really not helping the family, but we'll see. Also, it turns out that Lori Loughlin's daughter, when she got news that this is the USC student, when she got news, she was celebrating on spring break on a yacht owned by a USC board member, trustee.
President.
Yeah, the president. His name is Rick Caruso. She was on a yacht in the Bahamas with him. So, therefore, the optics couldn't be worse.
And that yacht's worth $100 million. But back to that guy that was on the street with the blunt. His parents, according to this article, they paid $125,000 to get his sister's ACT and SAT scores changed. There was a proctor in the room and changed her answers and gave her a perfect score on the math, 800, and 700 on literature. And then for the ACT, she scored a 23. The highest score is a 36. They changed her score allegedly to 35, right. Almost a perfect score.
Apparently, the guy who was the mastermind behind this, he knew that if you know the kids had taken the SATs and it was a score like 1,100 or something like that, you couldn't immediately go to 1,600 or there would be all sorts of red flags. So they would talk to the parents about, okay, what number would you be comfortable with? And then they would essentially negotiate that number.
Would it be a red flag?
And find somebody who could take the test and get them pretty much right there. And according to what we read in the indictment,
well, I mean, when I was in high school, the people who scored a perfect score or were the top of our school, we knew that they were straight A students all the way through. But if you have a girl who scored a 23 on an ACT, and then all of a sudden rumors spread that she almost gets a perfect score, people are going to be like,
red
what?
flag.
How exactly?
Hello.
Yeah, Jillian, you got a perfect score. Was anyone suspicious?
No, I mean, everyone expected it.
They expected it. Fantastic.
You know what's missing in all this is a sense of pride for both parents and students of accomplishing things on your own. That's what's sad.
Completely working hard for it.
Being proud of yourself. All right, let's get to this Fox News alert now, starting with this. A New York City mob boss is gunned down outside his home. Gambino family leader Frankie Cali shot several times in Staten Island. The gunman sped away in a blue pickup truck and is on the run. It's unclear if this was a mafia hit or a rogue gunman. Cali is the highest-ranking mobster killed in New York since 1985, when John Gotti ordered the murder of Gambino boss Paul Castellano. Robert Mueller's top prosecutor is reportedly stepping down, fueling speculation that the probe will soon be over. According to NPR, Andrew Weissman will leave the special counsel's office. Earlier, Judge Andrew Napolitano explained what that might mean.
He's either stepping down because his part of the probe, Manafort, is now over. The other way to look at it is it is coming to an end. This is all a perfect storm. Manafort sentencing, Gates sentencing, Flynn sentencing, Weissman leaving.
Weissman is also reportedly leaving the DOJ altogether. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's daughter leading a nationwide walkout on Friday. Isra Hirsi is helping organize a student protest against climate change. Thousands of teens are expected to cut class and demand that lawmakers take action. The Minnesota Democrat is calling on members of Congress to join her daughter's protest. And we have some sad news to pass along. The man whose last wish was for a phone call with President Trump, you remember, we told you about this. He passed away. Jay Barrett dying overnight, days after the president surprised him with well wishes.
How are you doing? How's it going, Jay?
It's going, you know what I mean?
You're a champ. You're gonna fight it, right? You're just fighting it?
It's what the Irish do, right?
Yeah, that's what the Irish do. You better believe it. You look good.
Barrett suffered from cystic fibrosis. His sister Bridget, a Connecticut Democrat, helped grant his wish to speak to the president.
That is sad.
Sad. And remember, he said, I plan on voting for you.
In 2020.
Wow.
Bless his heart.
All right. Thank you very much.
Let's
All
hope
right.
the president was able to do it.
Nancy Pelosi rejecting any compromise on the president's emergency declaration for the border. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is here to react to that next.
And it sounds like a regular 911 call.
911, what is your emergency?
Yes, ma'am. I'm calling because there's someone up in front of our house. We just drove home, and he's yelling and screaming and, like, flailing his arms.
Okay, that's what they said, but wait until you hear what really happened. It's an unusual emergency, let's just say that.
Glad you're up. Hope you're dressed. All eyes on Capitol Hill today, where the Senate will vote on blocking the President Trump's national emergency at the border. I'm talking about Republicans now. Nancy Pelosi already rejecting any compromise, tweeting, quote, in an effort to avoid voting in the favor of the House's resolution to terminate Trump's fake emergency. GOP senators are proposing legislation to allow Trump to violate the Constitution just this once. The House will not take up this legislation to give President Trump a pass. Here to discuss this, House Minority Leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy. So you got about 4 or 5 or maybe more Republicans who are going to vote with Democrats against the president. Your reaction, Leader McCarthy?
Very disappointed in those 4, because you've got to understand, the president has the authority to do this. Just the sheer argument inside the Senate Republican conference saying they want to change the law proves the president has the authority. Think for a moment, is there an emergency? 72,000 people were caught coming across the southern border illegally in February. 11-year high. We know from the drugs that are coming across. We know the challenges of what is happening. He has the authority to do this. If you believe in the rule of law, you would uphold it. Now, even if they win today and they send it to the president's desk, he will veto it. And I'll make this promise to you and to the American public. We will uphold that veto in the House, and it will go, and the president will have the ability to do it.
And Leader McCarthy, isn't he right that you guys kind of left him in a lurch? So for 2 years you had power of the House, and you never gave him the billions, or at least $5 billion he needed to get some significant things done on the wall?
Well, let's make sure your viewers know what the truth is. In the House, we passed $5 billion. In the Senate, it takes 60 votes. And this is the real challenge when everybody say, you had the House, you had the Senate, you had the presidency. Yes, but the way our government works, 60 votes.
No, I know, but you had to
get
go back
done.
and put the $5 billion in at the last minute. It wasn't there originally, right?
We passed it in the House, though. Let's give credit where credit is due. The House Republicans passed $5 billion. It was Schumer who stopped it and actually got us into a shutdown.
Beto O'Rourke is going to be running for president. He made it official. The tape's out. You work with him. What's he like on the floor? Has he made a big impact?
Well, he served in the House and I served with him, but to be honest, I can't remember one speech that he gave on the floor or one bill that he passed. It's remarkable that his rise, that he's now running for president, because I can't remember something he's done in the House, and then he just lost a race for the Senate. So in the Democratic Party, that means you're capable or really the person who should run for president.
Your former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, made a statement a couple of days ago saying that if the president runs on his personality, he's going to lose. He's going to run on the issues. He kind of walked it back. But what's your reaction to your colleague, your former colleague?
You know, Paul called after that, and he did try to walk through what he said he was going through, and he was trying to make the point. This president has such a very strong record. He's going to win re-election. Look, I believe this president wins on every aspect of what he's able to do. And think for one moment, we're at 3.8% unemployment. Think what the president said he would do. Get us to 3% growth at the time, President Obama said, what does he have, a magic wand? He proved he can do it. Look at how much stronger the military is. Look what we've done for the VA. This president's going to win re-election in every aspect of what he's able to achieve.
You disappointed Paul Ryan made that statement?
Yeah, I disagree with Paul Ryan in that statement, but I appreciate Paul clarifying what he said the next day.
All right. Leader McCarthy, thanks so much. I know you're going to have a busy day because you're going to make everyone vote on the new Green Deal in the House like they're doing in the Senate. Kevin McCarthy, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, 10 minutes before the bottom of the hour. In just a few hours, actor Jussie Smollett will face a judge, and he won't be alone in the courtroom. We're going to preview that next. Plus, Pete Hegseth, who I know, going one-on-one with Vice President Mike Pence in the woods. The exclusive interview next.
In just hours, Empire actor Jussie Smollett will face a judge in Chicago. Cameras will be allowed inside the courtroom.
Including ours. Smollett is expected to plead not guilty to 16 felony counts connected to that alleged fake hate crime against himself.
Jody Lum from our Fox affiliate in Chicago joins us live outside the courtroom where Jussie will appear. Hi, Joni.
Hi, Steve, Ainsley, Brian. There's a lot going on for Jussie Smollett right now. The Empire started up again last night. A lot of cameras are assembled here outside the criminal courthouse. He's expected to be assigned a judge today, and then he'll enter a plea. He's already said he's not guilty of staging a racist, homophobic crime against himself. Last night, the season 5 opener of Empire started up, and he was in that show. His character Jamal had some relationship issues, and the producers are saying that later in the season he is not going to be seen in the ending episodes, that this criminal case is just too disruptive to the production. Jussie Smollett came to court this week for a hearing on whether to allow cameras in the courtroom. He was not required to come, but he did, and he walked confidently through the courthouse. Smollett first charged with one charge of disorderly conduct, but then that 16-count indictment came back, apparently a charge for each of the alleged lies that he told police, claiming that 2 brothers attacked him in a downtown neighborhood and poured bleach on him and put a rope around his neck. Police said that he did that to advance his career. So he faces that indictment today. There's also going to be a rally outside here, outside the criminal courthouse, a Justice for Jussie rally. So a lot happening here in Chicago. Reporting live, I'm Joni Lum. Now back to you, Ainsley, Steve, Brian.
All right, Joni, thank you very much.
Tony. Vice President Mike Pence touring a Customs and Borders Protections training facility in West Virginia yesterday as the Senate prepares to vote on whether to block President Trump's national emergency declaration.
Fox and Friends weekend co-host Pete Hegseth joins us right now. You went out there. This is a full court press on behalf of the administration to get senators to vote in the president's favor later today.
Absolutely. This is an extension of the promise to build the wall. Congress couldn't do it for 2 years. President tried shutting down the government, ultimately declares a national emergency. Now the House has voted to try to overtake that. The Senate's got a big vote today. The vice president putting on full court pressure to say, if you're with this president, you should not vote to take down the emergency. Take a listen. All right, Mr. Vice President, what did you see here today?
This training facility is where our Customs and Border Protection personnel train through virtual reality and in real circumstances to make sure that the people who are on the front lines have the background, the experience to protect our border and come home safe.
It's a couple of guys in suits out in the woods. You were recently on Capitol Hill. The president declared a state of emergency on the border to get access to funds to build the wall that Congress wouldn't build. What is your message to senators on Capitol Hill? It's Republicans at this point wavering on where to vote on this.
It is undeniable that we have a crisis on our southern border. Now, Democrats continue to say that it's a manufactured crisis, but the facts tell the story. What we want to see the Senate do this week is to stand with the president, to stand with the president's declaration of a national emergency. Look, a vote against President Trump's national emergency is a vote against border security. A vote against the president's national emergency declaration is a vote to deny the humanitarian and security crisis that's happening at our southern border. So we're urging every member of the Senate, set politics aside, recognize that we have a crisis. The president has the authority under the National Emergencies Act, vote down the resolution of disapproval, stand with the president, and stand for border security. That's what the American people want.
Do you see any crisis in legitimacy of a wall that has to be built through emergency funding? Is this something the Democrats will continue to rail against, tear down the wall?
You have to understand that the funding the president requested throughout the government shutdown, the funding that we're appropriating now under the law through the national emergency, is all funding that the Department of Homeland Security told us that they needed to construct a physical barrier, a wall in 10 areas of high-density population where the people wearing the green uniforms of Customs and Border Protection have told us that they need a barrier to do their job and to do it safely.
There's some reporting about an event recently AEI put on. Vice President Cheney had an interview with you, and he came after you and made some comments about how this administration's foreign policy seems more like the Obama administration than the Reagan administration, talking about NATO and the pullout from Syria. Your response to some of those criticisms from former Vice President Cheney?
Well, look, I have great respect for Vice President Cheney, and we had a good, vigorous debate over this past weekend. Look, when I told him when President Trump ran for office, he made it clear that he's no fan of foreign deployments, that he wanted to bring an end to these endless wars. I know there are some who don't like the fact that the president has called on our NATO allies to pay their fair share of our common defense, to live up to their commitments, but I just know that the American people appreciate.
There are many who do like that.
A president who looks at our allies and says, look, we're going to do our part. You need to do your part. And that's what we call being a leader of the free world.
Absolutely. Sticking with vice presidents, Joe Biden, former vice president, make it into the race. He famously called you a decent guy, and he took some heat for it. Your take on Biden possibly getting into the race?
Well, look, they've got an awfully big field on the other side. The reality that you see on the Democrat side is it's largely being driven by the most extreme liberal elements in their party. And the way Joe Biden caved in to liberal activists after making a kind comment toward me is evidence of the pressure that all of their candidates are going to face. So the truth of the matter is you've got a party on the other side that is prepared to run on open borders, socialism, abortion on demand, infanticide, Medicare for all, and the Green New Deal. And I like our chances in 2020.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Pete.
You got it.
Great interview.
I appreciate it. We'll see how that vote goes today, but a full court press. Are you with the president or not? That's what they're saying.
The president's
Republican
walking away
senators.
from the opportunity that Republicans were giving him to say, okay, we'll give you this, but just promise not to do it again, and we'll get this in legislation. The president goes, no, I'm not taking you up on that.
Nope. Either you're with me on the wall or you're not. We'll see how it goes today.
All right. Good enough.
Appreciate
Pete,
it, guys.
thanks for
Thanks a
making
lot.
the trip.
Thanks, Pete.
You got it.
All right. Meanwhile, Texas Congressman, former Beto O'Rourke, made it official. He's running for president. Does Newt Gingrich like his chances? Take a look. Newt is in the house.
Yeah, I think you're over Beto. Am I right?
Busy Thursday on Fox and
I always love that shot. You see the American flag. This is where we work, and you can look up and see the trees in the park.
And on a good day, you could see the Wendy's sign where you could walk into the
Or
subway.
the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, Pete Hegseth this year. I saw. Remember you last hour. What else did you do?
What else did we do? We got out of the woods.
You left the woods with the vice president.
With the vice president. We went into the training facility, which is a Customs and Border Protection training facility. Before we were in the woods with the vice president, he was taking a tour of this facility, talking to Border Patrol agents and other folks. Kirstjen Nielsen, who's the Secretary of Homeland Security, was there with us. And she's in the middle of this debate. Is it emergency or not? How should the Senate vote?
Right.
What's actually happening down there with increases in apprehensions? We asked her all about it. Take a listen. Madam Secretary, thank you so much for joining Fox and Friends. We appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for being here.
As you know, there's a big vote in the U.S. Senate about the president's emergency declaration on building the border wall. Your take on where that sits right now?
I think it's a moving target. I know what I have been talking to members of Congress about, which is, in my mind, it boils down. It can be complicated at first blush, but it really boils down to two questions. Does the president have authority to declare an emergency? He does. It's statutory authority that Congress gave him in a law. And secondly, is there an emergency? And I could certainly talk to you and anyone who's willing to listen about how that is a definitive and resounding yes.
This administration putting a focus on the border, yet we're seeing apprehensions go up. Why is that happening?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, if you boil it down, it's Congress, courts, and criminals. The criminals have found a way to take advantage of the situation. They're trafficking, smuggling, they're preying on the migrants, but they're also selling them a bill of goods. We've had some unfortunate court decisions. They clearly did not understand either the authorities in some cases, but more importantly, the operational effects of the security concerns. And then three, Congress continues to fail to act. This is not a partisan issue. It's not partisan to want to protect communities. It's not partisan to want to secure our border. It's not partisan to want to secure our homeland. And yet, in this environment, Congress refuses to act.
Recently, you took a lot of tough questions from mostly from the left side of the aisle. Your critics of the approach of this administration, what are they getting wrong about how you're approaching border security and things like family separation? They keep talking about cages. What are they missing in your approach?
Well, two things. One, I would say we're a law enforcement agency, so we enforce the law. You know, I've said it before, but I really fear for our democracy when the body who creates the laws is telling the body who enforces the law, just don't enforce the law. If they don't like the law, they should change it. But the men and women at Department of Homeland Security have sworn an oath to protect communities, to secure the homeland, and to enforce the law that Congress passed. The second one is there's just a lot of misunderstanding. Many of the policies and the ways in which CBP has been protecting our community for decades are the same. They're just suddenly now political and partisan. But these are the professionals who've done this for 20, 30 years, oftentimes at risk to their own lives. This is what they say we need to do to protect the border.
Madam Secretary, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for being
Appreciate
here.
it. We look forward
really
to taking a tour with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Pete, great interview, but this is clearly a full court press by the administration to get as many Republican senators later today to vote against the resolution of disapproval.
They're trying to make it a zero-sum vote.
Right.
If you vote against this, forget about the precedence argument or the idiosyncrasies about Senate procedure. Either you're with the president on border security, you want that wall, period, or you're voting against it. And the point they make is, good luck going back to your district or your state as a Republican senator in this Trump era.
To explain that.
To explain the fact that you voted against the president trying to build the wall that he said he would bring. A lot of pressure. Well, I know the vote, a lot of people think it will go against the president. We shall see how it actually unfolds today, because that's a tougher vote for some senators to take.
And the thing that I hate most about what's going on with Kirstjen Nielsen, they treat her with such disrespect on the Hill. When the message she carries is just what's going on at the border, she hits them with numbers. They hit her with personal attacks.
Spite. I mean, you watch the testimony against her. It's dripping with condescension. They're angry, and they take every bit of hate they have about the Trump administration on her.
Well, remember
she
when
handled herself very well.
Remember when they had that meeting and Nancy Pelosi and all of the Democratic leaders were interrupting her when she was trying to explain all the numbers and why.
Well, they don't want to hear the facts. I mean, and I asked her that as well off camera. How many folks are coming to actually watch what happens or see this training facility? Very few, unfortunately, from the left.
And if you say kids with cages, it started with President Obama. These are kids in facilities who come across the border, and they can only stay there for 20 days.
And Pete, if people who were sleeping when you, if you missed the interview with the vice president, we're going to show it again.
Coming back around in the 8 o'clock hour, more with the vice president
in the
woods near the training wall. Yes.
Out in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia?
Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Training
Lovely
facility.
area.
Good stuff.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. 21 and a half minutes before the top of the hour, and Jillian now takes us to Arkansas.
That's right. Good morning. Yeah, let's go there for this story. Arkansas and Utah, actually, are one step closer to passing the nation's strictest abortion bans. Lawmakers in both states sending bills bills to their governor's desks that would block pregnant women from getting abortions after 18 weeks. Utah's governor says he will review the measure before making a decision. The governor of Arkansas supports the legislation. California's Democratic governor takes convicted killers off death row.
Do we have the right to kill? And that's a deep and existential question. I don't believe we do.
Gavin Newsom signing an executive order to suspend the death penalty, sparing more than 700 inmates over moral concerns. Friends of Laci Peterson are outraged.
How is it humane how Laci and Conner died? Do you think Scott was humane about how he ended their life?
Laci's husband, Scott, was sentenced to death after murdering Laci and their unborn son back in 2002. Look at this. This is dash camera video capturing a driver's very close call with a crashing plane. You can see as the small plane barely misses a tow truck as its wing skims across a highway near an airport in Canada. The plane crashing into a ditch on the other side of the road. Incredibly, the pilot and passenger were not hurt. The driver of that tow truck says he felt so lucky after this, he bought lottery tickets. Wow. So a college basketball coach, let's excitement get the best of him. Just watch this.
Like you and Watson and Roby storm.
University of Nebraska head coach Tim Miles tripping and falling down while celebrating his team making it to the Big Ten tournament. Miles laughing off the tumble, eventually getting up and making his way to the locker room. Look, I fall victim to incidents like that all the time, so I feel his pain.
That's what you have to do, though. Even if you're
showed it.
But even if you're in pain, you just got to get up and own it. And be like,
yeah!
Woo!
Pretend
The
I'm
crowd
fine.
loves it. Yeah, if you broke your leg, then just hobble into the, into the locker room and then call 911.
All right. Thank you, Jen. Thank you.
Jillian. Yeah, thank you. All right, a powerful bomb cyclone turning deadly. It blows across the country. Colorado State Trooper Daniel Groves hit and killed trying to help a driver in blizzard conditions.
In South Dakota, powerful winds nearly blowing a man away there, as you can see, as he's trying to launch a weather balloon. Don't know why, but he tried.
Meteorologist Janice Dean would never do something like that. She tracks the weather full time. Hey, Janice.
Hello. You know, this was an historic blizzard. I want to show you where it is right now because we had 100-mile-per-hour winds across the Plain States. Incredible. It dropped 33 millibars in 24 hours. That is a bombogenesis, my friends. Big deal. We still have high winds across the Plain States. The potential for tornadoes, flash flooding, and heavy snow. So blizzard conditions across the Plain States. There are some of the wind gusts in excess of 50 miles per hour. All right, look at this amazing crowd that's with us today. Hello, sir. How are you? What do you have here?
A great book that I bought here in New York City.
Oh, my gosh, Mosley Sonny, thank you so much for coming. Wave to Steve Ainsley and Brian inside the studio. Can I brag for a second, guys?
Janice, we have a big congratulations to you.
Oh.
This morning you got some good news. You're number 12 on the New York Times list.
Yay,
Yes,
we
mostly
made it.
sunny
New
is
York
mostly
Times
great.
bestseller list. It's all because of you guys. Unbelievable. I mean, listen, I'm a kid from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. This is a dream come true. I'm not going to lie. Can you
Congratulations,
pinch me? Pinch me. Yes. I'm not dreaming.
America has embraced the Canadian. That is the big story.
There you go. It's a great book.
That's awesome.
All right. Thanks, JD. Meanwhile, Jay Leno says he's tired of the politics on late night TV.
It's all very serious. Everything is just so. I just like to see a bit of civility come back.
Not much of that these days. Turns out Johnny Carson saw this coming decades ago. We got the tape. We're going to play it for you coming up.
Plus, Beto O'Rourke is in the race, but does he even have a chance of getting the nomination? Ed Henry isn't so sure, and he's on deck.
Why will Pete leave? Fox News alert. Beto O'Rourke of El Paso, Texas, is now officially running for president. The Progressive Texas Democrat released this video about an hour ago.
I'm running to serve you as the next president of the United States of America. The only way for us to live up to the promise of America is to give it our all and to give it for all of us. We are truly now, more than ever, the last great hope of Earth.
Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry joins us now to weigh in. Does he have a shot?
Nothing bigger than that. The last hope of Earth. Right. I hadn't heard that one before.
There's bigger planets, but that's a big thing.
He has as much a chance of, 20 or 30 other people who have gotten in. This idea that because he came close in Texas, that Texas is in play in a presidential election seems like a stretch. But where I hesitate is, look, this guy has an it factor that Republicans shouldn't sleep on. He met with Barack Obama before jumping in. Democrats want to fall in love again. They want to find somebody who's going to be their great hope.
He did a show with Oprah.
Sure, and they're all in on that idea. But I have to tell you that President Trump has to be sort of licking his chops at the idea of facing someone like this who has no accomplishments in the House, runs for the Senate. His big ticket is, I lost. I came close to beating Ted Cruz. Yeah, he raised a lot of money. There's a lot of excitement. Again, I don't want to minimize that. But what I would say is, if you want to run against President Trump, who won on the idea of standing up for the forgotten man and forgotten woman, do you really want to launch your campaign on the cover of Vanity Fair magazine?
Well,
nothing screams middle America like Vanity Fair, Manhattan magazine. Come on.
He says that he's a generational shift like JFK, and he's got the honesty and decency of Jimmy Carter.
Well, look, in the video, he says, I'm going to run a relentlessly positive campaign. Why is he doing that? He wants this election, Beto O'Rourke, to be a reaction to President Trump. And the idea that, look, President Trump's on the attack, he's on the attack, I'm going to be relentlessly positive. Problem is, we know from House campaigns, Senate campaigns, and presidential races, negative politics tends to work.
Right.
And so can a relentlessly positive candidate win? This president in 2016, first in the Republican primary, defined all of his opponents to the point that he tore them apart.
Well, and in the
so can
article-
Beto survive?
In the article, he talks about how he wants to unite Americans and he wants to work with Republicans and listen to them. But when the rubber hits the road, you've got to look at how they vote. I mean, he was anti-border wall, voted against ICE, voted against Kate's Law, voted against Trump tax cuts, support single-payer health care, voted against restrictions.
Doesn't sound like a lot of working together.
I'm trying to see how he's reaching across the aisle. You make a good point, Ainsley. And I also think it's deeper than that. Think about what happened when the president had his event down in El Paso. No accident that he did it in Beto's backyard, perhaps. Right. Some people were saying he was trying to knock Beto out early. So Beto has a counter rally. There's a dispute about who had more people and all of that. But two interesting things. One, Beto O'Rourke had this fencing around the stage where he was and everything. And it was like, okay, so you need a fence and security and all that around you, but you don't want a border wall. And then remember, he did an interview after all that in which he said, I don't just want to oppose new wall. I want to tear down what's there. Tearing down what Barack Obama supported, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, basically. He wants to go further extreme to the left on the wall than anybody else in this race. That's going to be hard in Middle America.
Well, he's in Middle America. He's in Iowa today for the next 2 days, so let's see what happens.
Good luck.
Ed, thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
We'll see you this weekend.
See you this weekend.
Still ahead on our show, if I read the rundown right, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy will be here live. We'll talk to him.
Plus, Jay Leno says he is tired of all the political jokes on late night these days. But guess who saw it coming? Mr. Johnny Carson. We have the tape.
Karnak.
People don't like your politics. Everyone has to know your politics. Now it's all very serious. Everything is just so I just like to see a bit of civility come back to it, you know. All the comics, Jimmy and Colbert and everybody else. It's tough when that's the only topic.
And he used to be balanced. Former Tonight Show host Jay Leno calling out the politics of late night comedy, and it turns out his predecessor saw it all coming.
Join us with reaction now is comedian and founder of the Loftus Party, Michael Loftus. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How depressing is that to watch? It's such a bummer.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's like, you know, Leno wants to go back to the days of yore. Carson did a great job. It wasn't political. And now that's all it is. Just politics, politics, politics. And Republicans are always the butt of the joke.
Well,
it's just...
You know what?
It's sad.
We've got a soundbite in an interview with Barbara Walters back in 1984. Johnny Carson, who would make fun of Republicans and Democrats, whoever was in power, he would poke them. He had this to say about the dangers of getting too serious with your politics and your comedy.
I think one of the dangers, if you are a comedian, which basically I am, if you start to take yourself too seriously and start to comment on social issues, your sense of humor suffers.
And when you look, Michael, at the country right now, we're pretty much split down the middle. If you take a position on a social issue, you, as a business model, are alienating half the audience.
Well, that's true. And if Carson would have done that back when there was like 3 channels, if Carson would have alienated half the country, there would have been hell to pay. He would have been ruined. But now it's just this one-sided, lopsided, the right is horrible, orange man bad, Trump is the end of us all, and conservatives were just taking it. It really is shocking that America seems to be so cool with this. Like every night, ABC, NBC, CBS, they just broadcast that the right is a bunch of idiots and Trump is the worst person ever. And conservatives are just like, well, I'll watch something else.
Yeah.
I tell you what, politics is downstream from pop culture. And if conservatives don't get involved in the culture, it's going to be bye-bye country.
You know, I wonder if they even realize it, because they live in New York, they live in Hollywood, but you're a conservative, you travel the country for your tour. We're all from rural areas where we do hear from people who say they miss the Johnny Carsons of this world. But do you think that the late night hosts even realize it? Because they surround themselves with people just like them.
No, yeah, great point. They don't realize it, and they're not preaching to the entire choir of America. They're just going to continue. They're fighting over the table scraps that's left over. They're all competing for the same anti-Donald Trump, anti-conservative audience. I tell you, good for Donald Trump. He's given these guys a career. I don't know what they're going to do in 2024 when he's no longer president. It's going to be wacky in the unemployment line. That'll be weird, wild stuff.
Thanks. Michael Loftus has his Deplorable show. Check it out. It's coming to a theater near you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Right back.
What makes this simple sound?